Hello, so welcome to City of Sydney Reboot. I'm Rebecca Campbell from Zambezi.com and I will be hosting the event today. So before we start, I want to acknowledge the Gadigal people, the traditional owners on the land in which much of us are meeting today, and their elders past and present. And because we're meeting online and people are in all sorts of different places, I want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands in which you work today, and also the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are participating in this meeting. So today is the second of a series of 18 really incredible business workshops that have been put together by the City of Sydney. So in a moment, I'm going to introduce Fleur Brown for a masterclass in personal branding and particularly how to leverage your personal brand to attract customers to your business. I just want to call out the first two events that we ran last week and the week before with Tim Doyle. Many of you on those attended those webinars as well. We are going to share now a link on the chat to the video, and there's also a really nice takeaway note sheet that we've made. If you'd like to download that, if you were on the call or if you weren't at that webinar, feel free to download that as well. So what is Reboot? Reboot is a series of 18 events that the City of Sydney has created in response to a business needs survey, which the city put out at the height of the pandemic, and asked Sydney business owners what they needed at this time. And so the way the series works is the first 6 weeks, of which we're in week 3, is all focused around growth and marketing strategy. So the first one was pivot your business. The one last week, which I've just shared the link to, was around digital marketing strategy in the era of COVID. Today we're looking at personal branding. I'll call out the final 3 events towards the end of the session today and share those links. Next, at the beginning of February next year, we'll launch the next part of the series, which is around strategy, people, growth and finance. And then the final part of the series will be around implementing everything that we learned in the first part. So we'll have partnership events with Facebook, Google, Shopify to really help you, put into practice everything that we've learned so far. So each event follows a similar format. We start with an incredible expert from Sydney's business community who speaks for around 20 minutes. So Fleur will join us in a minute to share her slides and give us a talk. That'll be followed by case studies of 3 businesses who will be similar to many of the other businesses who are attending today. So we have 3 businesses that will be joining us on the event today. Is Laura from Well-Read, she's a tech startup founder, and Well-Read is a book subscription business. We have Emma Fisher from Evolve Consulting, so professional services business. Emma has a business providing finance coaching to entrepreneurs and business owners, and Jules Hall, who's a founder and CEO of The Hallway, which is Australia's largest independent advertising agency, so creative agency. I know that we have a lot of creatives on this call, as well as agency businesses as well. So if you want to ask questions, there is a Q&A function. And please upvote the questions that you want to be addressed. We try to get through all of them, but we're not always able to get to all of them. So please do upvote the ones that you are interested in. We will be sending out a survey at the end of this event, and we also will be recording this event and sharing the link to that next week. So today we've had an incredible response to these events. We have more than 430 of you attending today, and it's amazing the City of Sydney has been able to bring together this amazing business community online in this time. I want to call out a few of you. So who wrote to me specifically, told me what you wanted to get out of the event. So Denise Ellis, Aussie Virtual Markets, has an online marketplace for Australian small businesses. She wants to get some pointers on how to get media exposure when she doesn't have a large business. Liz Wong, who's the co-founder of Mspire Advisory in the CBD, she wants to build a personal profile in a way that leads to attracting new business, but she doesn't want to come across as salesy. Natalie Gitz, who has a business called Violet and Gold, which is a native botanical syrups for creative food and drinks. She wants to learn how to use LinkedIn to reach a niche audience. Kerry-Ann Lovell from Kerry-Ann Love Editorial. So she is currently working on a new business and a new website. So she has never had to brand herself before, and she's hoping to pick up some tips. And finally, Jo Morrison emailed me. So she ran the Incubate program at Sydney Uni for 5 years. She's recently launched her own coaching business, Go Mojo, and she wants to learn how to raise her profile and the profile of her new business. So if you'd like me to mention your business next week, please just reach out to me on LinkedIn or email the City of Sydney. If you'd like to be a case study on any of these events, please also email the City of Sydney business email address that you're getting emails from relating to this event. So I'm now going to hand to Fleur. So for those of you who don't know Fleur, I'm sure most of you have heard of her. She is an icon in Sydney. So Fleur is an amazing publicist. She's founder of Launch Group. She's one of the founding group of TEDxSydney. She's also the founder of the Entrepreneurs TV show. Our personal brand, I know, has been her passion for a long time. She's been teaching it for many years. She's also recently published a book. So Fleur is the go-to person in this area, and I'll hand over to Fleur to share with you now. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Rebecca. Well, welcome everyone. It's really fantastic to join you all today. It is my number one passion topic, and I'm really excited to share some insights. We've got a lot to cover in 20 minutes, so if we don't hit everything that you're interested in hearing about, please jump into the chat afterwards, and I'm happy to take some questions after the session as well. So in terms of what we're going to run through today, I thought it would be helpful to just break it down into some basic questions. I'm going to ask you, get you to sort of think about from your own end, why are you here? What do you really care about? What do customers ask you to do for them consistently? What are the top themes? What are you unnatural at? And where will you start? So I'm going to break what we're talking about today down into those sections, and starting with that first question, why are you here? Thank you to everyone who filled out the section on the form about what you wanted to get out of today's session. There were a lot of varied responses, as you'd expect. Perhaps I should start with why I'm here talking to you about the subject today. So in my many years, too many to count, working in the space of publicity and public relations, I've had a lot to do with promoting the brands of CEOs and celebrities. What I realised after a few years is that I was constantly being asked to go to coffee and have a conversation about how to share those skills that CEOs in particular use with the rest of the community, the rest of the professional community. With the rise of digital communication platforms like LinkedIn, a lot of the social media outlets, there's an increasing requirement for people to have to use those skills and those tactics themselves. And of course, when you're running your own business, it's a really, really important thing to be able to use your personal brand to help build revenue for that business. And so what I want to really zone in on today is the fact that ultimately the reason that you're here listening to this, if you are running a business or even if you're a sole trader, is because you want to deliver some revenue to your bottom line. And it's really important to remember that focus, because without that focus, we can sort of lose our way in the fame treadmill. So a lot of people think that in order to have a personal brand, you really need to be an influencer, you have to be famous. This is the wrong webinar for that. Of course, fame and notoriety can be a great byproduct of building your personal brand, but it's really not the core reason that you would want to do it as a business owner. The reason you want to do it is to help deliver more revenue to your bottom line of your business. So having a think about why you're here and really setting some goals that align with the reason that you want to build a personal brand, so that you don't get distracted by the idea of fame, vanity metrics, all of those things, try to do too much and end up not doing enough in the process. So I know there's a lot of startups on the call today, and there's also a lot of people who are not in a startup per se, but they're running an SMB business. From a startup perspective, there's many reasons to jump in and out of building your personal brand. So, you know, from the genesis of your startup, thinking about your brand purpose, what I found in working with a lot of entrepreneurs and startups is that in the majority of cases, the reason you've started the business relates very much to your own personal passion, a problem that you really want to solve in the world. And actually, this is the same for entrepreneurs of any description, not just startups. And so your personal brand is probably intrinsically linked to the very reason that your business was started. So remember that when you're communicating. It's a really important and very powerful place to come from. Your track record as an individual, as an entrepreneur, is really important when you're a startup. And so you need to have that visible and as strong as it can be from an investor point of view, particularly if you're trying to go for venture capital money to get your business started. Customer advocacy, and once your business grows, employer branding is really important. So it's often quite hard for startups to attract the right talent. Your personal reputation, your profile, lending that profile to the strength of your company is really important in helping you attract that talent. And then, of course, once you've moved into establishment phase and beyond startup, you may be thinking about exiting if you're a startup founder, and that's where you want to have a portable personal brand that you can take with you to your next venture. So it's important for many of those reasons and many others. And then going to just a general SMB, the launch of your business will very much involve your brand as a founder. You need to be the spokesperson at that point. And so that's an important moment to really stand out with your founder profile. Brand building and education, often very tied into your personal journey and why you started the business. And we can touch on that when we come to some of the case studies later on. Customer advocacy, employer branding again, and ongoing customer growth. Think about this equation for a moment. In the digital world, marketing is very much digital. Digital is very much social, a social media journey. As you know from being on social media is very much about individuals and what they share. You're much more likely to respond to, engage in, and share content that comes from a person rather than a company. And so your personal brand is very important. And of course, your ongoing reputation of the business as well. So I'm going to ask you to have a think about what you really care about. A lot of people feel when they get into putting content out online that they need to jump off into some sort of deep level of expertise that they're not that passionate about. And I say, don't do that. We're all time poor. You're running a business at the same time that you're trying to build a personal brand. You need to really tap into something that you're passionate about. And that lends itself to the sort of signature topics that you might take out there into the world. So have a think about what you really care about. And remember, the universe rewards passion. If you don't really care about the topic, your audience won't care about it either. They get the vibe, whether it's online or not, they will get that vibe from you. The other thing that you need to think about is, what do your customers and perhaps your friends and others ask you to do for them constantly? So what is the thing that they are constantly hitting you up for coffee around? I know with Zambezi, Rebecca started the Zambezi platform because she had so many people asking her for coffee to pick her brains around how to raise venture capital. And so she created a course around that. It was similar for me in the personal branding space, constantly asked by people, can I pick your brains on how to build my profile, how to set up my LinkedIn identity? That's a big clue about something that your customer base is highly engaged in. It may not necessarily be the thing that is the cash cow for your business, but it's definitely that attention point that is going to draw people into you, into your website, into your social media platforms. So have a think about what your audience is going to be most interested in and what is it that they're already asking you to do for them. And then that's likely to also be an area of expertise, which is another really important point when it comes to personal brand building. You want to be coming from a place of expertise and credibility. The next question I get you to ask yourself is, what are you a natural at? Now, this is more about your channel as a performer. So if you ask a room of people, there'll be 5 people that are natural at public speaking. They love it. They get a rush out of it. Everyone else is running for the hills when they're asked to give a talk. Some people are very visual. They love Instagram. They love taking photos. They love using images. They love the world of design. That's a big clue. Some people are a little more introverted. They love writing and, they're good at writing, and that's a natural channel for them. So I would ask you to think about what is it that you are a natural at when it comes to communicating, and really hone in on that when it comes to what choices you make around how you build your personal brand. Don't torture yourself. That's a big principle that I work with across the board in personal branding. If it feels like torture, it's probably the wrong path for you. Go with things that are part of your natural zone, things that you enjoy doing. The other reason that's important is because you will not stick to something you don't actually enjoy doing. Similar to exercise, sure, we all have to push ourselves to get up and go to the gym, but not everyone wants to go to the gym. Some people love running, they love swimming. Go with the flow of what you enjoy doing, and you're much more likely to stick at it. So looking at that question and the sort of channel choices that you might make around your personal brand, there's written channels. So, blog posts, obviously that extends into social media. maybe even writing things for media itself and getting it published, speaking, video and audio channels. I know there's been questions about podcasts. So, you know, that may be something that you have a natural affinity for. If you've never listened to a podcast in your life, I'd suggest that's possibly the wrong path for you to go down, because it's not an area that you're naturally attracted to. Do you love taking photos? You could play that up well on Instagram. Do you consume a lot of media? If you don't read or consume a lot of media, it may not be a great channel for you to be in, because it's really important that you follow the news agenda, you understand it, and you follow the journalists that you're trying to get attention from. Awards, that's another channel. If you follow what awards are in your industry sector and who's winning them, that's probably a big clue that you're quite motivated in that space. It might be something that you want to pay attention to. Events, getting out there and speaking. Obviously, a lot of us are doing that in a digital context. That's not a forever game. It's all going to shift next year, and we'll be back to in-person events, and probably back with a big bang. So if you love attending events and you quite enjoy presenting, that's a great option for you. Smaller presentations, another option. So it might be a boardroom gathering of, you know, CEOs or C-suite or whoever your natural customer base is. That might be an area that you feel more natural in, rather than presenting to 100 or 200 people. Word of mouth referrals, what's your network like? Is that a natural channel for you? If you love writing, you might want to consider a book at some point, which is a good marketing opportunity. There are other things, but these are just some of the things to think about when it comes to what you can infuse your personal brand plan with. Don't pick everything. You need to pick a couple of things and do them well. Looking at social channels. So again, don't try to cover the entire social landscape with your personal brand. Now, your business may need to be present in all of these channels, and therefore you may pop up as a personal brand in all of those channels. What I strongly suggest is that you're not a tourist when it comes to the personal brand social media channel that you choose. If you hate Twitter, you may need to have a presence on there for the sake of your event promotion strategy, but don't torture yourself by making that your main channel. You need to understand the landscape. We all know from social media channels when somebody's not used to being on that channel and they're starting to post messages that just seem a little bit wrong for that channel or tone deaf. Twitter is one of those platforms. Quite often people will use automatically repost some of their LinkedIn posts onto Twitter, and everyone who's on Twitter as a native knows that they've done that and they're not really present on that channel. So you're not going to get rewarded for doing that. So pick the social channels that you are most comfortable at naturally, that you want to hang out at and spend time, and do a cross-check to make sure that your customer base is also on there. So probably, 2 or 3 channels as a maximum for your initial personal brand strategy. When your business is doing really well and you can afford somebody to help you focus in this area, you could spread that across the other channels using an assistant. So in terms of where to start, this is the hardest part, making the commitment, to really jump in. And so I've sort of spelled out on this next what I call your minimum viable brand, which for those of you in startup land will understand the reference. Firstly, you need to have a personal bio. So what this is basically similar to your summary section on LinkedIn. It's about 2 to 3 paragraphs, perhaps a long bio version, 5 paragraphs, summarizing who you are in the world and what some of your key achievements are. This is really fundamental if you're going to be doing presentations, if you're pitching yourself in media. It's your introductory tool. If you don't have your summary section filled out now on LinkedIn, please make sure that you do that. If you want to have some clues about how to write a personal bio, I have quite a few blog posts on my personal website around this sort of thing: how to write a bio, how to find your signature topic. A decent photo, that means something that's clearly visible and it's, about 2 years old, nothing much more than that. You don't want people to sort of do a double take when they see you in person. Having a strong LinkedIn presence for a business is very important. It's a really, really powerful channel. I know people feel it's quite spammy, but actually it does deliver if you have a strong and focused presence in that space. A Twitter presence is important if you're going to be doing public speaking. Increasingly, a medium presence is also important, and we can talk about that in the Q&A section. Speaking and presenting are also very important channels. So making sure that you're out in front of your target audience at least a couple of times a year, if not more. And I'd also recommend that everybody does some media training, because even if you're not having a proactive media strategy, you will at some point be asked to comment from a journalist, and it's good to understand how to build those journalistic relationships the right way. The other thing that I suggest to people is to have a think about your content on social media this way. You've got 3 choices. It's good to do a mix of all 3, but you can just choose one. Create your own content. So creating original content and blog posts, that's probably your purest strategy. It's also the one that is the most demanding and takes the most time and energy from you. So fresh writing, fresh content, original content. Curate. Use other people's content, other people's resources, and own it through your personal social brand. It's good to remember that the TED model and the TEDx model is a curation model. So they don't actually produce original content. They commission content by other people, other thinkers, authors, academics, and they publish it on their site. It's one of the most successful channels in the world, and it's been done through a curated content approach. And then lastly, participate. So making sure that you're not just one of those people that just posts content out. People see that as quite selfish. They want you to engage and actually respond to other people's content, respond to your customers' content, have something to say on those channels. Those 3 principles are your most important guiding principles for you on your social media platforms. So just to summarize, why are you here? The answer to that question is your focus for your personal brand strategy. Understand why you want to build a personal brand in the first place, and make sure that your plan serves that strategy. What do you care about? Remember that if you don't care, your audience won't care either. And then what do your customers ask you to do for them most frequently? This becomes your signature topic, your main menu topic on social media. Not your only topic, but one of your main points of focus. Where do you feel most comfortable? These are the channels that you should choose and favor. 2 to 3 channels, don't try to do everything. Where do you start? Well, if you put the answers to the first 4 questions I just asked you together into a 12-month plan and then commit, you do need to wait about 6 months before you start seeing really strong results. I'd love to tell you it's sooner, but I'm sure you all know well enough by now that good things take time. That's the end of my key insights, Rebecca. I'll hand back to you at this point and we can get into some interactive Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you, Fleur. I just want to remind everyone to ask your questions in the questions section and to upvote the questions that you want answered. I'm going to now introduce Laura Brading from Well Read. So Laura is a startup entrepreneur. She has a background in book publishing, but she started an online book subscription business. And so Laura probably has questions that are very similar to a lot of you out there. So Laura knows that as the founder, she should put herself out there more, but she doesn't want to, she doesn't feel natural as a kind of influencer and wants to put herself out there in a way that's authentic. So I'll hand over to you, Laura, if you can describe your business in a minute or so, and then you've got a few questions for Fleur. Thanks.
Thanks, Rebecca. Hi, I'm Laura Brading, and I'm a former book publishing professional and bookseller. And I'd always wanted to open a bookshop, but that dream pivoted to a book subscription service when I had children. And as a result, Well Read was born. And as Rebecca mentioned, it's a curated book subscription service with a focus on the best new literary releases. Our simple proposition is that we will read mountains of books and select one new release to send out each month to subscribers. So the business is absolutely based and it prides itself on being anti-algorithm and very much human focused. It's me and my very small team who read the aforementioned mountains of books, and we quite literally handpick one out. Also, we send out a letter each month to subscribers, and this is always signed off with my name. I host all the author talks and events that we do. But that all being said, my presence on socials is generally kept to a minimum, and I don't always feel very comfortable showing myself. For instance, I never have done an Instagram story speaking directly to camera, I guess, as you mentioned before, Fleur, that would be my idea of torture. But I am comfortable in a public speaking scenario, interviewing authors and so on. So I'm wondering how much you would encourage that I do this, put myself out there. Is it okay to only sometimes insert myself into the visuals of the business, or should it be?
Okay, the last bit of your question just cut out, but I'm going to assume I understand exactly what that was. Firstly, congratulations, what an amazing business, and it's so exciting that it's following your passion. So I think what you're looking for is channels that will help reflect that passion and the whole handcrafted kind of flavour of what you do. So I think it's important that you show up in channels that are very personal. I think you mentioned that you do author Q&As and that sort of thing. And, when we go back to in-person events, that's possibly a very strong channel for you. It is a very personal channel. It's a great reflection of that curated, handcrafted flavour, that you bring to the business. I think it's important to remember that passion has its own resonance, and that brings a lot of word of mouth, into the business. So when you show up in a space where, that's present and you've got an audience that really responds to that, I think you'll find that you'll get some really good marketing results from that. So I would definitely hero those in-person events. And then I would pick the social media channels that you have the greatest affinity with. So if you feel comfortable on Instagram, then show up for that. If you can bring that kind of in-person flavour to a Facebook event, for example, if you can stretch yourself into that space, I think that could be, that could work really well for you. But other than that, what I would suggest is that all of your comms that you put out into the world have that lovely handcrafted feel to them. And yes, you do show up, because when there's no personal touch and there's not a person that's visibly driving the business, you lose the whole message that you're trying to take out there, which is, I'm passionate about this. I brought this into the world to be very personal. There are humans behind this. And you might want to share, if you have other members of the team, they're willing to use their personal brand, they might also feature, and you could stretch it across the whole team so that you feel less exposed, but you've still got people behind the business. You're a people business. You're not an algorithm. So show up in the comms. It is important for you.
Okay, great. That's a good mantra. I'll repeat it over and over again whenever I'm feeling hesitant. And my second question was, and you've sort of answered this, I suppose, but it was, what advice would you give to somebody who wants to increase their profile in the industry they work in? So I mentioned that Well-Read hosts events and author talks, and that is something that I enjoy doing and feel comfortable doing. But how could I do this outside of the business?
Yeah, well, look, quite often with industry profile building, there are vertical publications, blogs, magazines, Facebook pages, that sort of thing you'd be familiar with. Mm-hmm. Offering them some content. It's the same with events. There'd be events that are put on by others. My guiding principle here is, don't reach out to people if you're not enjoying those forms yourself. Unless you've been to those events and you enjoyed them, or unless you read that, you're connected to that Facebook community and you love it, go with the flow of those. It's the same with your team. Like your team might be interested in different things to you. You could spread the love that way. So really identifying the areas of the industry that you hone in on the most when it comes to blogs that you read, podcasts you listen to. Let's not forget, in this day and age, we're now in COVID, we are global, because, a lot of those digital platforms offer us global opportunities. So not just focusing in on Australia, there might be global podcasts in the literary space. I know of a couple, that could be really interesting for you, but make sure that you have a connection with them personally, or your team does, before you reach out, because that will mean that you're not going to be tone deaf in the way you pitch yourself. You're going to have already thought about ideas about the sort of content that they might be interested in.
Sure. Thank you, Fleur.
Pleasure. Good luck.
Thank you, Fleur. Thank you, Laura. I'm now going to introduce Jules Hall. So Jules is co-founder and CEO of The Hallway, Australia's largest independent advertising agency. The Hallway has done an incredible job of building a business founded in Sydney in 2007. They have clients including Google, ANZ, Binge, and Jules has built a profile as a well-known founder in the industry. So Jules has questions around signature topics, around being busy and how can you grow your personal brand, and can you work with other people to help you do this, and also around building relationships with journalists. So I hand to Jules to describe your business and fire your questions to Fleur. Thanks.
Thanks, Rebecca, and hi, Fleur. So a little background on my business. We're an advertising agency, so we exist for one reason, and that's to help our clients grow their businesses. And there's three ways we do that: through consultancy, identifying where they should focus their efforts and investments; through creativity, which is generating the ideas that are going to connect their business to their customers; and then the third area is through media, which is buying the advertising space that's going to deliver the results they need. So the nature of our business is we work with a relatively small number of relatively large businesses. We're in a highly competitive marketplace. There are a number of many businesses we compete against, but my focus is always to ensure we're positioning ourselves as thought leaders in our industry. So the clients that we're not yet working with, but would like to be working with, are seeing us, they're hearing about us, and we're demonstrating our knowledge and expertise through our efforts, through our publicity. But my first question, what I've noticed, so there's in our industry, as with every industry, there's some people that are really good with their profile and they feature really regularly. And I've noticed with some of these people that they tend to pick one topic and they talk or publish lots around that particular topic. Now, they don't necessarily say the same thing every time, but there's a theme, and that theme might last for 12 months, then they might move on to another theme. That strikes me as quite an effective approach because you build familiarity and understanding, and you field different questions on a topic. But is that an approach you'd recommend? What are the benefits of that, or is there a better way to go?
Yeah, look, absolutely. I'd call that a signature topic. I'm a big believer in that. You'd know from your own brand building efforts, there's an old joke about the minute an organisation wants to get rid of their logo, it's probably the point in which their customers have just started recognising that logo. So it's the same with these, points of expertise. We're in our own head a lot of the time. We're bored with our own topics. We feel like we're boring other people. They've just started to notice that we're actually talking about that thing. So it does take time to educate our audience, around our expertise. You've got to pick the right topic. It's got to be one that you can own, one that you're truly an expert in, one that's relevant to your audience, and one that's going to engage them. So if it's, ticks all those boxes, but it's boring, you're not going to draw them in. So I've actually written a blog post on how to identify your signature topic, which, rather than sort of going too deeply into it, that's just available on my website for everyone if they want to have a look at that. But what I would say is, I'm not saying this is all you talk about. Have a diverse offering. So if you're looking at social media, for example, your pie chart of content might look like 40% signature topic, 30% your audience's content, so sharing their content. They like to see themselves reflected back in your channel. 15% engagement beyond that, and then fun. Just pure, craziness or out of the box fun. 15%. These are not hard science percentages, by the way. And then you've got hardcore promotion. So your marketing, you want to keep to, your hardcore marketing on your personal brand channel. Keep it to a kind of a minimum. It does turn people off a little bit. Save that for your company channels. So yeah, look, it's a great strategy because, I've often used the strategy to pivot. If I'm trying to pivot the focus of my personal brand or my business, I will drill into something for 6 to 12 months. You start to really see the impact after 6 months. What it's working when someone invites you to speak on that topic, and it's not a topic that you've been talking about previously. It takes a little bit of time, so keep going with it. Commit and keep going with it.
Thanks, Fleur. So my 2 outtakes there: focus is good, but don't bore people.
Yeah, good summary.
All right. My second question, and I imagine this is one that a few people have the similar challenge. We've got good relationships with the journalists in our industry, and we get opportunities to comment on news items. We get invited to talk at conferences. But I'm very conscious that often it's probably our competitors or suppliers and partners that are reading that media, perhaps less than some of our potential customers. They're probably more in the Australian or the Financial Review. Courts call it mainstream media. How do businesses like ours and others in that space go about building relationships with journalists in more mainstream media, or where their customers are?
Yeah, look, it's a good question. Firstly, media breeds more media. So if you get a media presence of any description, other media use it as a reference point. When they Google searching, looking for somebody again on your topic of expertise, if you come up in that search, media publishing, being published in media ranks highly. So don't dismiss those industry verticals and industry publications. Also important for your staff recruiting. In terms of going into more mainstream media, so the cheats version of that, but it's costly, is get a PR agency who has a relationship with the journalists you're trying to reach, because you can cheat the system by using their relationships to get you in the mix. If you're going to go do it yourself, firstly, read those publications, stalk those journalists, understand what they're writing about, what they're thinking about, be invaluable to them. Remember, they only get to quote 1 or 2 sources. And they have their, as you would know, their go-to people, often in those spaces. If you want to become that go-to person, you better have some really valuable content. You better be an expert in the topic. It better not be boring. So, similar principles to the signature topic that we talked about. And then in terms of pitching, making sure that you're pitching stories that are on their agenda. So again, read what they're writing. Don't pitch them something they've already written about. Pitch them an extension to that story. Understanding them and their space and what their focus is. It does take a lot of effort to do this. So if you think it's going to deliver the return for you, then go at it. But you may not get a result for 6 months because you're boxing above your weight to be in consumer media as a B2B brand. It's hard. It's hard unless you're a big player. So it's definitely worth it. You can get the results, but it is challenging. You do need to be patient. I have a blog post on whether you pass the cred test for media. So that's on my website. There's a few questions you can sort of ask yourself. You can only make a good impression with a journalist once, so it's worth getting your approach right. Call them in the morning, not the afternoon when they're writing the stories. There's a few little hacks like that when you're doing it yourself. Getting to sit next to them at an industry event, trying to build a relationship. That's really where you're going to get the results in that space, as well as being an expert.
Great, thanks, Fleur. Well, I can certainly vouch for Media Gets Media. We've certainly had good. That's where we have featured in the mainstream media.
Awesome.
Back of trade media. So look, I'll check your blog post. My final question was, I enjoy writing. A few of my partners also write, but we're very busy day to day, as everyone running businesses are, and it often can get deprioritized. Other people I've spoken to have used ghostwriters or similar to author content for them. My concern is around authenticity, retaining personal tone of voice.
Yeah.
Have you seen that done well? Is it an avenue that's worth pursuing, or is it better to be self-authoring?
Look, I don't know that I have a definitive yes or no to that. Firstly, I would say, some of the most read posts are a few paragraphs long. Don't over-egg it. You don't have to. So, and also don't die in worthy corner. So it doesn't have to be a literary work, when it comes to what you're posting. What I suggest, let's go to ghostwriting in a second, but have a 12-month calendar, and invite your customers or your partners to publish content as well. And you can do an introductory paragraph to that content. You don't have to write everything yourself. You can curate, but make sure that you're kind of personally visible. Should you give your voice away to a ghostwriter? Well, look, you could. I think I would suggest that you start that strategy and commit to it yourself and establish your own tone of voice first. Then have someone shadow you, in that journey, and make sure that you're editing it really heavily. If it's the only path to actually getting content out there, then, it's definitely one to look at. As you get a bigger team, there might be someone internally, often works better because they have a really good feeling for your customer base and you and your personal style. Look, CEOs do it all the time, so of course it's an option. It doesn't have the same resonance to it. You can't cheat that system, but it can be a very effective strategy.
Great. Thanks, Fleur. Really helpful. Some really good pointers. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Jules. Pleasure.
Thank you, Jules. Thank you, Fleur. And I also just wanted to congratulate Jules, who has just been, Hallway has just been nominated for New South Wales Agency of the Year. So congratulations to you guys. I just wanted to remind everyone, please keep the questions coming. We're going to go to questions after our last case study, which is coming up now. So please ask questions, upvote the ones that you want Fleur to address. I'm going to introduce Emma Fisher. So Emma is the founder of Evolve Consulting. So Emma is a finance coach for entrepreneurs and business owners, and she has a bunch of questions around personal branding, but especially around finance being not a particularly, some people might say exciting or visually appealing topic. How can she build a personal brand around that topic? So I'll hand over to Emma to introduce her business.
Thanks, Rebecca. So as Rebecca mentioned, I'm a chartered accountant. I've worked, multiple different businesses managing finance functions, and most recently working in smaller business internally, kind of helping them build their profitability and running their finance function. So off the back of that, I've started my own consultancy company. And what puts me apart from sort of other chartered accountants out there is that I kind of am going with the vision to support business owners for their goals and their success. So I work with you every step of the way to achieve your vision and provide ongoing support and coaching, as well as those normal accountancy type services that you would receive. So my question is kind of around some education piece and how to get my personal brand out there, that I'm, breaking that traditional mold, maybe some people might say, of accountancy. So my first question is, a big part of what I need to do is educate business owners on, the difference in the services I provide. What suggestions do you have for how I can raise awareness about, the coaching and the ongoing support, and how I can do that?
Congratulations on your business. Sounds really important, particularly this year. So look, I think your topic you may feel that it's a dry topic, but it's not dry to your customer base. So often our customers are the best guide in what's interesting to them. And the biggest clue is, what do they ask you about? What is that problem they try to get you to solve? Now, again, this might not be your cash cow product. It might be something that makes you roll your eyes. Look, I'm the same. People ask me, about, maybe how to use Instagram. I don't even like Instagram as a channel, or how to write a LinkedIn profile. And it's really important, but it's really not, it's not my worthy topic. But they don't care about your worthy topic. They just want an entrance point to the conversation. So what are the things that keep coming up, that even your friends and family might pick your brains on? Like, what are the problems that they want you to solve? Start with that content, because you'll have their attention. That is what they want you to solve. That's the reason they will make an appointment with you. It's the reason they'll engage with you. Start with that. Don't start with this kind of, very pure and worthy offering, which is, how you want to sort of solve the world's problems, because often it's too hard and overwhelming for people. They don't understand the basic building blocks of what you're offering in the first place, and you might scare them off. That's another issue. So starting with content in the education area that, they most often ask you. And again, as I was saying to Jules, you don't have to make it War and Peace. You could just have an Instagram post that poses the question that people ask you the most frequently. And then you link them to, an FAQ piece or a video piece, whatever your chosen channel is, the way that you like to express yourself. So starting with those points. The other areas are customer testimonials and case studies. Customer testimonials can sound a little bit wooden. Case studies where you bring a problem and a solution to life they can be, really powerful. Getting customers to agree and sign off on being in the spotlight is hard. It's great if you can, but even if they can't sign it off to be identified, you can de-identify them and use them as a hypothetical. People love stories, so really breaking it down into a story flow.
Oh, okay, that's a really good idea, the case studies. Thanks for that. And my second question is, because it's just me, I'm a solopreneur, I'm starting out, in reaching out to customers, it's important that I'm being super targeted. So far I'm using Instagram and business, Facebook, and reaching out to replying to questions on different groups. And I've seen really good engagement on that, when there's finance questions and things like that. But how else do you recommend that I find the business owners that need my services and find those target clients?
Yeah, look, there's not really a one answer to that, because you got to fish where the fish are. Excuse my Kiwi accent. So when you're doing that, you really need to follow the trail of where you think your customers are sitting, and you're going to get more and more clues as you progress with your business. So where are you getting the biggest hits? The analytics, the basic analytics packages behind, social media platforms are really good now. Study them. Study them daily, study them weekly, look at not just what got the most likes, but what got the most click-throughs. Like, I often see content that gets 300 people clicking through, but only 5 people like it. So, having a look at what's actually leading people to take an action step around your content, not just what's a pretty picture and they love it and they like it and they don't actually do anything about it. So being forensic about the data. And again, I just say, when it comes to your personal brand, making sure that you're hanging out on a channel that not only your customers are there, but you're actually quite native to that channel. You're happy to spend time on there. There's social media channels I have to be torn away from. I love them so much. And there's others that feel like torture. So, if it feels good to you and your customers are there, you're going to spend more time there. You're going to be very engaged. You're going to be a natural in your communication style there.
Okay, great. And then my final question is, as we talked about before, finance may not necessarily always be the most exciting topic. It isn't the most visually appealing compared to amazing skincare or products that you can see on your Instagram feed. So how can I provide informative content to my audience, whether that be on stories, IGTV, YouTube, podcast, in a way that reaches those people?
Yeah. Well, look, a lot of people ask about podcasts. And, it's a legitimate strategy. I think it's really important, and same with the YouTube channel, to understand it absolutely takes time. There is no way to cheat the system when it comes to building an audience on those channels. So you might go 6 months with what feels like crickets in the background, before you actually get traction. And I say this having built a TV show. The time in which we were on air for 2 years and the time in which we were coming off air and ending the series is when people started hitting me up with a whole lot of pictures and, feedback and telling me that they'd seen it. And, it takes time. So you need to love the channel. If you don't love podcasts, please don't do a podcast. If you don't hang out on YouTube, please don't do a YouTube channel. So go where you enjoy being, where you're a native and you're going to, enjoy making that content, because then you're likely to stick with it and commit. How do you make finance sexy? Well, look, financial freedom is very sexy. Sell the benefits, sell the end story of how some of your customers have been able to achieve their goals. It's extremely sexy to be able to be financially independent, or, run your own business, or have 12 months off to write a book, or whatever it might be. So sell the end game. And also, just going back to the first question, remember what your customers are asking you. What are your friends asking you? What are your family asking you? If that's on their mind and they're willing to go and have a coffee about it, it's important to them. That is sexy. They want to know that information. So use that as your hook to get people in.
Okay, amazing. Thanks so much.
Pleasure. Good luck.
Thank you, Fleur. Thank you, Emma. We are going to go now to rapid fire questions from the floor. So I'm going to start with Mark's questions. Are traditional press releases relevant today? How would you promote new items in today's social media world?
Well, press releases are relevant to media. kind of like PowerPoint presentations, they're still around and kicking, and we still use them no matter how much we love to curse them. So journalists still rely on a press release because it gives them a basic tool that they can use to write an article. A press release might not be all that's required to sell a story to journalists, but it's really important as a tool to help them write that story. So go through the discipline of writing a media release, a press release, if you're going to be doing publicity. It's not so relevant to social media.
Okay, cool. Thanks. So if you're really strapped for time, this is Alison's question. What's the one thing you should focus on to build momentum around your personal brand? So just if you could do one thing, what would it be?
Look, this is going to assume that you've got a B2B audience or a professional audience. LinkedIn, get your LinkedIn profile right. Your personal network, is on LinkedIn. You should be linking in with everybody that you know professionally and that you're about to meet professionally. It's one of the first things you should do. When people go there, they should know exactly what you do. Fill out your summary section, have your best pieces of writing on there, use it regularly. I don't care if the Prince of Nigeria is contacting you, to put a transaction into their account. Don't accept people on LinkedIn that you haven't got some kind of connection with. Like, if you don't want to get hit by spam requests, don't just don't link in with everybody that comes your way. Link in with people who are relevant to you professionally. Be active on that channel. It does deliver. It takes time, but it does deliver. It's your strongest professional network, and so they're going to support you, in your journey and help you with referrals.
Great. Yeah. Good point on LinkedIn. And if anyone Googles you, I always Google people before a meeting, and LinkedIn is always the first thing that comes up. So question from MZ. So he has just started a product-based business, STEM Construction. So he's a very private, or she's a very private person, struggling with the idea of needing to show myself on personal media. So how vital to doing this is to doing this is it when your business is not about a service, it's about just a product?
Look, you still have customers. And so I think you've just got to trick yourself into seeing your personal brand efforts as being another communication tool for customers. Most customers like to know who they're dealing with, in a business. Are they trustworthy? Are they credible? You are passionate about your business, no doubt. Otherwise, why are you doing it? So bring up that passion. What is it that you passionately want to communicate with? Who are you communicating to? And find the channels that they're on, and then have those conversations. You don't have to be, this is not about being famous. It's not about being an influencer. It's about communicating well with your customer base and future customer base.
Thanks. I might ask you, Fleur, that perhaps after this, or if you don't have them off the top of your head, some examples of some good, maybe in services and product businesses where the founder has built strong personal brands, where we can share them with the communication afterwards.
Yeah, great idea. I'm happy to do that.
Question from Ruben. So using different online platforms, so Twitter, Instagram, website, would you say the content has to be differed on each one so it's a unique experience, or do you have the same content across all of them? And
yes.
If so, any tips?
Yes, absolutely. It should be different. So this comes back to the principle of don't be a tourist on those platforms. You shouldn't just be spamming people with, Facebook content that you put on Twitter, and you love being on Twitter, but you don't pay attention to Facebook. People on that Facebook channel will know that you're not really there. So you need to show up in a way that is tailored to that audience. Don't just shoot content at them. So if you can't make that commitment, it's almost not worth doing the channel, really, because you're almost doing your brand a disservice in doing that. So yes, it does need to be different. How does it need to be different? Well, I probably don't have time to go into the nuances, but what I would say is study that channel and spend time on it. You can't just rock up on Twitter and expect to get engagement. It's a hostile world on Twitter. You need to understand that world and spend time on it. Facebook is a very social world. It's got its own nuances. Instagram the same. So hang out on the channel, spend some time, figure out, how they do what they do. Or you will get run out of town on those channels. Some of them certainly, like Medium, for example, is one of those channels where you really need to understand what people do on that channel before you use it.
Okay, just before I go on to the next question, is there anything, watch outs that you would give in terms of how personal branding can go wrong?
Yeah, look, I think when you make a commitment to building a personal brand for the sake of your business, you have to understand that you're going to lose a little bit of freedom of speech. So you can't just, let everything hang out, and it's not all about what you had for lunch or, who you're having drinks with at the wharf. It's about things that will serve your customer base. Now, you've got to have personality, you've got to have authenticity, you've got to have fun. But at the same time, if you want to go and have your loose conversations that are really funny but maybe not appropriate for your business, then have a dual profile. I have 2 Facebook profiles, one for business because I'm very private, back to the other question, and one for business, so that I can show up, in all the business channels quite comfortably.
Cool. Thanks, Fleur. So last question we're going to get to today. So challenge is to draw the line between the brand of the business and the personal brand, so they're inexplicably linked. So Rob has focused on his personal brand messaging being around amplifying stories of his business, but that doesn't necessarily build his personal brand. So how are they different?
Yeah, well, look, they're different at different stages. So at the very beginning of your business building, if you're just launching a business or you're launching a startup, they are quite interconnected. So your personal story, your backstory, the reason you've started the business is really interconnected with your business brand. Afterpay is a classic example. I worked with Afterpay in the early stages of, building their brand, and Nick Molnar was really central to that. And his whole feeling as a millennial around debt and debit cards, that was really important as part of the brand story. As they became a listed entity and then took on a global world and have a vast number of staff, it's no longer appropriate for Nick's personal brand to drive the company's branding strategy. So as you get bigger, you can detach it more, but Nick's obviously still quite central, but he pops up, he comes and goes. He's not the brand, he's part of the brand. So it's going to be different, at different parts of the journey. If you have other ambitions and you're trying to build a personal brand around that, I would say just, give your business enough time and space to build before you go off into new ventures. So once you've established your business brand, you can kind of go off on a sideways direction with your personal brand.
Cool. Thank you, Fleur. And thank you for everyone's questions. For those that we didn't manage to get to, we will try to address them in the follow-up material that we'll be sending out. So just a quick wrap up. I want to start by thanking Fleur, Laura, Emma, and Jules for taking the time to be with us today. We're going to share the link to Fleur's book on personal branding if anyone would like to check that out. That'll be up on the chat now. I want to remind you that you're about to be sent a survey. In fact, we're going to also share a link to that survey. So either click through the link or you'll get the survey sent to you on email. Please do fill in that survey. Let us know what you found valuable. Let us know what else you'd like to learn, because that will help us shape the rest of this program. I just wanted to remind you again, this is part of a series. This is week 3 of the first 6-week sprint. So we've got 3 more events coming up next Monday with Andre Eichemeier, who is the co-founder of Vino Mofo. So this next week is all about business branding. So if you want to learn how Andre and his co-founder built a $100 million wine business in competition with Coles and Woolworths, really just based on brand and really clever community building, that will be an awesome event. So registrations are open for that. That one will reach capacity. We're almost at capacity today, so please register if you'd like to attend. Then we have Chris Wirasina, who is the co-founder of Pedestrian.tv. Pedestrian, many of you will know, is being the kind of millennial brand around content, probably one of our most successful content business in Australia. Exited to 9 last year for more $100 million or something. So that is an event on content, building a content strategy that stands out. So if you want to use a content strategy to build your business, then please tune in for that event. That's 2 weeks on Monday. And then our final event for this year will be Growth Marketing Strategy with Anna Cheng. So Anna is head of growth at Bright. She also was head of growth for Spaceship, the new superannuation company, which grew to be incredibly large very quickly. She ran some really clever growth tactics around that. So she's going to be talking about growth marketing and the growth tactics that tech startups use and how those same growth tactics can be applied to kind of any business. So tune into that one. That is on the 26th of November. That's the last one for this year. And then next week or the week after, we'll be sharing the details for our next sprint starting next year on strategy, finance, people. I want to thank the City of Sydney for hosting these events. I hope you're finding them really valuable. We're getting incredible numbers from the Sydney community on them. Please email if you'd like to be a case study or if you'd like to have your business highlighted and what you'd like to get out of the event. And yeah, thanks again for attending today. I learned a lot, and I hope you learned a lot as well. And I really hope we'll get to see you all again next week. Thank you.